to Leaders of Tomorrow, the only show on Indian television where you, the MSME, get center stage. This is ET Now's special daily initiative to give MSMEs and entrepreneurs the opportunity to be front and center on every industry and area that matters to you. Tonight, we are bringing you a conversation 1 year post demonetization and the impact that it has had, particularly for you, the MSME entrepreneur. And we have a very special panel with us tonight. Gentlemen, thank you all very much for being here tonight with us. Let's start by talking about how digital lending has changed in India post demonetization. 1 year post this big push by the government, have you started seeing things really changing on the ground, particularly for small businesses? Let me open this up to the four of you.
Okay, so post demonetization, I think because of the lack of cash in the economy, lots of merchants started accepting electronic payments. Now that itself works up to their credit, right? So that makes it easier to get access to a lending. Today, if you see the scenario, almost most of the SMEs have no track record, right? As far as the legal thing is concerned, and loan thing, entire thing works on credit. So if you have a credit profile, then automatically you're going to get access to credit.
Okay.
So I think just to add on to what he is saying, what we have seen observed is, it is not a function of demonetization per se, it's a question of digitization. Because what we've seen in the last 18 months is a lot of technologies that have come out. We are talking about AI, machine learning and all, which has helped lending. Ability to basically do the credit worthiness or the credit checks on or risk scoring of a SME has gone up phenomenally higher, and ability to give them cash, because you see a lot more fintech startups that come, and we have we work on the payment side, we work on the merchant side. And we have allied or got into alliance with several such NBFCs whereby we could give finance to the SMEs, whether it's small merchants or medium-sized merchants, because the ability to give them capital or able to give them a loan or something as fast as possible, that's what we've been able to do right now.
So just to add to that, Sunanda, I think just taking all of us one step back, I think we've just celebrated the first anniversary of demonetization, and I think this is just round one, right? We're just seeing the start of a longer process, and I think, as Dewang rightly said, it's about digitization. Every industry, every economy really needs an inflection point, and I think what we've seen in this through this event that happened a year ago is, largely speaking, the government, the regulator, the industry players and the consumer are now talking a similar language, right? It is a common vision of a digital future for all of us. And you're seeing that at least there's a common language and common vision. And I think that's where we consider this as just round one, and it's just the right steps in the direction where you will start seeing that the trickle-down effect, it's too early. I mean, the jury's still out to really decide, but I think the trickle-down effect has started, and you will start seeing signs of that happening for even the trader and the SME community of India, which of course is the largest sector.
So let me get your comments as well, Ramki.
So what I see is that, okay, as others have opined, that's a trigger. The demonetization, what happened on November 8th of last year, is a trigger for many reforms that followed. And also you would also know, like the P2P lending, that's formalized by RBI, and that is going to enable a lot more lending, lot more fund flow, especially if you're just talking about small entrepreneurs, mom and pop shows, individual store owners, business owners. They should have more access to funds, because individuals can now lend across the country. So that's a pretty powerful thing that is enabled. At the same time, you know, thanks to demonetization, I think the cash flow into the banks has been tremendously high, and that money banks would necessarily want to lend to make business out of it. So that's another thing that you will see happening with the recent impetus from government also to give so much money further to lend to the SMEs, to SBI and other banks.
Okay, let me talk about Tier 2 and Tier 3, and I want to talk about the role of innovation. Clearly, the need and the demand in small town India is very different from what is happening in urban India. What can entrepreneurs like yourself, and if we can also talk to our viewers about what should be done, how do you ensure that you're reaching the last mile? What kind of innovation? How is that market different? What would you like to tell our viewers about what they should be doing? Or if they're a company that's innovating for this space, what should they keep in mind?
So So one quick learning that I can personally share from our experiences over the last many years is when you're dealing with India and when you're looking at India, remember that there is actually two Indias. There's an India and there's a Bharat. And Sunanda, contrary to a common belief that there's a very clear segmentation between what the India is and what the Bharat is, and one resides in the metros and the other in the tier 2, tier town cities. I think our learning has been that, and for every entrepreneur, every businessman, to know that the India and the Bharat actually coexist right in the same spot. Right? You take any of our metro cities as well, you know, take places like Low Parel, and you have the new tall beaming skyscrapers. At the same time, you have the Bharat, which is residing in the chawls, both coexisting right together. Be it cities like Delhi, and you have the Okhla Industrial or the Sona Road. To really just understand that India is really not just about segmenting consumers, SEC A, B, C, you know, the traditional segmentation that would be a marketing approach. I think that's all gone. I think India gets really well divided between, you know, there's a top of the pyramid, and then there's this large middle of India. Right? And what you're seeing is from a triangle, we're moving more and more to a diamond. You know, you're seeing that there is more and more aspiring Bharat that's coming up.
So, but the way in which you're talking to these consumers, that's what I'm trying to understand. That definitely has to be different. What role does talking or having solutions, having products in the vernacular language make a difference in this market?
See, there are two things. One, before you talk about vernacular language or any kind of solutions that you're presenting, first you need to understand in terms of what is the psyche of the people sitting out there, whether it's a merchant or a SME merchant or a customer out there. Today, whether it's tier 2, tier 3 or maybe a metro, a customer goes down and makes a payment for, let's say, IRCTC train ticketing or online and does online bookings out there. They're very comfortable doing that. When you look at basically on a tier 2 or tier 3, the merchant requirement, number one, is in terms of they are already used to cash. So they need something which is as simple as cash, because it has to be a replacement for cash. Otherwise, the willingness of a customer to come down and make a payment using any card base or anything, it's going to be almost zero. Right? Because customer, again, they go down to the ATM and they withdraw cash, as we were talking about discussing earlier. That behavior trend is already there. To come out of the behavior shift, yes, vernacular languages would play a long, I think, big role in terms of how maybe a merchant at tier 2 or tier 3 will start looking at things. Because one of the key things, for example, what we've been trying to do when we launched recently an app called mGalla, which is essentially targeted at merchants or small merchants. Currently it's in English, but the next version that we are rolling out is going to be in Hindi, and then we're going to start rolling this out in multiple languages. The idea is to help the merchants accept payments, do their things in multiple languages, in the local language itself. Then it becomes a lot easier for them. They can relate to that because first is they're able to.
And therefore adoption becomes much more.
Adoption becomes a lot easier. The idea is to create as much ease for the merchant, number one. Number two is then, again, for them to go down and reduce the friction for the customer also becomes far easier, because then they can pad on and do a lot more things around.
Sure. What's your response to that?
So, as far as payments is concerned, digital payments is concerned, be it for the, if you look at tier 1 cities and you look at the upper middle class and the middle class, there's already too many, the ways and means of paying is there. If you look at the ABCDs of the urban areas, the I, buy, cooks and drivers, there are enough payment options, and even if you look at Bharat, enough payment options. What I mean by payment, ways of paying in a sense that today India has the largest number of payment options in the world. In a sense that today, even if you go to US, it will just be a Master, Visa, Amex or a Diners or a Discover. We have 200 plus payment options. As an end user, even if it's a villager, he can walk into say a Tamil Nadu cooperative bank and open a zero balance account and get a debit card or a net banking access. Through the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan accounts that was opened, 500 million plus rupee debit cards were distributed. So there is no shortage or incentive for an end, even in Bharat so called, in the village level, for a person to go and pay. He has the ability to pay. The only problem is at the acceptance level. Last year, before demonetization, there was almost around 1 million points of acceptances. For a country of 1.2 billion plus Indians, only 1 million plus acceptance points, that is the challenge. And that's where the government needs to focus on, is on the including. Today you go to Kirana store, you can't pay electronically. Now, because after post-demonetization, there are QR codes and a lot of innovation that is happening, but still lots to be desired. One is, the two essential part is, of course, one is incentivizing the merchants, because without tax incentivization, they are not going to accept electronic modes. Today, the mentality is khaya piya, jo kamaya, bhul jane ka. The moment they accept, then all those taxes and things comes in. If they are not tax incentivized, the merchants are not going to accept electronic payments. And then again, we'll find salaried guys who have paid taxes going to an ATM, withdrawing cash and then paying it.
And then paying it. Ramki, do you work with, small town India? Do you work with companies that are based, in the rural markets? If so, how do you talk to them? Do you have to innovate differently for these markets?
Absolutely. I think we work with several types of companies, including those in the tier 2 and tier 3 locations, as well as more importantly, vendors, merchants who hail from these places and who are still predominantly in a cash kind of an economy. You would understand several cafeterias that we operate in, they have never seen a digital payment mode, primarily because it doesn't suit that purpose, because in a given 1 hour, 2,000 people need to have their lunch. You can't keep swiping the card. That's prohibitively expensive in terms of time it takes to complete a transaction. So there are specific solutions that we need to deliver for each of these places where this actually should help them grow the business. Taking from what Dewang has mentioned, cash is a very difficult thing to compete with, okay, because of its various advantages. But it is not just good enough to be comparable to cash. For a replacement to be successful, you should be 10x better than that. Okay, what can make 10x? What can be 10x better than cash? Okay, probably there is no one thing that is 10x better than cash to everybody, but to each one it is something else. So we were able to give such solutions in certain areas, and I think there is a lot more that need to happen across the country in various spheres of life.
Gentlemen, do hold that thought. I'll take a very quick break, but there's much more on the other side. Do stay tuned. Welcome back. You're with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight we're talking about demonetization 1 year since that big bang move and the impact that it has had for MSME entrepreneurs. Dewang, Vishwas was talking about one of the reasons that perhaps is hindering acceptance in small town India, tier 3 and tier 4 is the points of acceptance. Digital infrastructure spends is what I want to talk about. There's clearly not enough happening. What should the government be doing to push digital infrastructure? What can private companies do? Is there an opportunity there for private companies to get involved as well?
When you look at a tier 3 or a tier 4 city, when you put a point of sale terminal, each point of sale machine costs close to about 10,000 rupees. Now, would maybe a service provider or a bank be able to recover that amount of money in absence of customers not doing transactions? Because if you put the money, the merchant or a business owner is not willing to pay a rental on that. B, the transactions are not there, so there is no revenues coming out of the transaction, because when you look at, there's a certain break-even point for a transaction to happen. Thankfully, after demonetization, or just about a time when demonetization happened, we had QR code which were there from Visa, Master and everybody, and then we had created a unified standard called Bharat QR. Now with Bhim integrated as a part of it, I think if you look at maybe tier 3 or tier 4, they're able to go down and start using newer technologies, because again, the thing is about the cost of infrastructure. Are you going to create a very high cost infrastructure out there? My sense is it's going to be hybrid. Wherever it requires to put in a point of sale machine, they should put in a point of sale machine. But wherever you can make do without a point of sale machine and can use maybe mobility, because ultimately mobiles are the way to go forward, they can start using QR code on mobile and start using QR code as a technology to be able to drive or at least create those acceptance points. Then the current then one side is the acceptance infrastructure. Second side is basically the issuance, or people how they're going to use that. Traditionally, people have used cards. There is a Gen Y and a Gen Z, which actually is used to mobiles as much. They've been used to smartphones, they've been used to basically using applications on the phones. So when they start using bank apps, or maybe apps provided by basically private service providers, something for Bhim or something for M-Visa or something else, they can start using those options to start making payments there. I think as long as we start driving those sort of options, because ultimately it has to hammer down to people. Again, there is a certain amount of incentive component, yes, that comes in. Incentives don't work beyond a point, but yes, incentives do work to kickstart a process and make sure that people start using it. On our own personal example, again coming back to the thing, we started out QR code based payments on IRCTC. we've seen phenomenal success rates basically happening. We have seen people adoption coming in there, and we are not really patterned out there in terms of which part of the country people are paying using QR codes out there and doing scan and pay options. But we've seen transactions happening and large number of transactions happening, and we don't see any reason why this cannot be replicated in maybe a tier 2, tier 3 or tier 4, given the right kind of incentivization which can be given to everybody else and the right push, because ultimately the advantages of digital has to drive through to everybody else.
Okay. Bhavik, Dewang was talking about cost. I just want to broad base it and talk about the cost of adoption. One is, of course, the information that small businesses have when it comes to digital adoption. But the second is also the perception, at least, that is going to come at a higher cost, and therefore it's something that can be put off. I want you to sort of maybe counter that if possible and give us your views.
Sure. No, look, so I think two things that I wanted to highlight. On an optimistic level, I think it's also important to note that there has been a genuine mind shift. That's the step one. Right? I think at least what has happened is now every small business, small shop, as well as consumers know that they have to be able to accept or have a digital option with themselves. I think that's a big move. What has also happened is this is not only the first year anniversary post demonetization, I think it's also the 10th year anniversary for the industry of digital payments. And to go back 10 years ago, you know, retail payments or digital money was about 2%, 3%. Today, that's about 12 to 15% of the entire, you know, 2 trillion plus Indian retail spends. And I think that's a great achievement already. And now what we're going to see is an accelerated growth, that it took probably a decade to reach from 2 to 12, 15. But I think in the next 3 years, we would be able to, you know, clock an accelerated growth of that 20, 30%.
Okay, gentlemen, we're running out of time, so I'm going to take very quick closing comments in a minute or less. Let me start with you, Vishwas. Possibly an unpopular view, but a lot of analysts say that demonetization would have happened eventually if the government hadn't taken this big bang, you know, sort of move, you had that push, because the economy, the industry was moving towards digital payments, less cash or no cash. Your views?
No, I don't think so. It was moving. We had a traditional old economic growth rate. Demonetization helped it expedite. As I said, debit card spends went from 25,000 crores a month to 58,000 crores a month in demonetization. So that changed the habit. There were a lot of first-time users and other things. This is just the fillip that we required. So without demonetization, what would have taken us traditionally 7 to 8 years, it happened within 1 month. So
okay.
I am all for demonetization.
Fair enough. Bhavik, we haven't discussed data security. Even as demonetization and as digital payments are picking up, data security continues to be a talking point. You think there's enough being done there?
Absolutely. I think every market, once it becomes large enough, I think the right best practices, the checks and measures have to be put in place. Once investments start coming in, and I think that's another last bit of positive that I want to leave all your audience with as well, is that now suddenly with this whole move around digital, we're also seeing a lot more investments. Fresh investments have started coming in from outside the country, from within the country. A lot more confidence is being shown in a digital future, in a digital economy of India and the businesses that are running that.
So let me come to you then, Dewang, and we were talking about data security. I want to talk about the role that the government really has to play when it comes to digital payments. As someone who's in this industry, who's in this space, one or two things that you think the government should necessarily have done? Are you happy with the kind of changes we've seen? And if not, what else would you like to see?
First of all, you can never be happy with any of the changes that have ever happened, right? You can, if you are satisfied, that means basically that you reached a different set of a nirvana point out there. Having said that, basically there are a couple of things we have been like, even as part of Payment Council of India and along with Vishwas, we've been trying to drive a lot of these things to the regulator and as well as to the government. Second, the whole model across, applies not only to regulators but applies to schemes also. Whole model across is very, very issuer centric. See, that started out of the initial model because of risk perceptions and everything else. Today, for example, when you have a platinum card, 1.85% of the amount of spend actually goes to the issuer bank, the bank that has issued the card. On top of it, whatever additional money that comes in is basically left with the acquirer. Now, given the market pricing, the market prices are very, very competitive. The amount of margins that are left for an acquirer to lay down infrastructure is hardly anything. So you're here, there's a situation, you're rolling out the road, but you're rolling out a road at a loss. You're not even being able to recover the rent on it or maybe the toll on it consistently on that.
All right. Ramki, Dewang, Bhavik, Vishwas, thank you very much for being here tonight with us.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That wraps up tonight's episode on demonetization and the impact on the economy. If you have anything that you want to say to us, do remember you can write in at leadersoftomorrowtimesgroup.com. On social media, tweet at me at Sunanda_J or LOT_ET now. Our Facebook page is Leaders of Tomorrow on ET now, where you can leave your comments for us or call us on the number you see on your screen. We love hearing from you. Thanks very much for watching. Have a good night.